Joining us now, MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian, who's outside of John Bolton's home, NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake, D.C. correspondent covering the Justice Department for the New York Times, Glenn Thrush, and MSNBC legal analyst and former U.S. attorney in Michigan, Barbara McQuade. Ken, the FBI got there just before 7 this morning. Are they still there?
They are indeed, Katie. We just saw a couple of agents or technicians leave with their FBI windbreakers and get in some of the vehicles and depart, but there are some still inside. And so now we're in excess of 7 hours in Ambassador Bolton's sort of modest suburban house here in Bethesda, Maryland, as compared to the 9 hours that the FBI spent searching a much larger Mar-a-Lago compound. So that's just interesting to note. Of course, when the FBI searches your house, they are meticulous and they go through everything and they look for all your electronic devices and they go through every scrap of paper. It's one of the most fearsome powers that the government can wield, short of taking your freedom away. And now it's obviously happening in a climate where the FBI and the Justice Department have been politicized as we've never seen in modern American history. And of course, that raises a host of questions. But we should also keep in mind that in order for this search to have happened, a magistrate judge, an independent federal judge, had to have signed off on it and ruled that there was probable cause to believe that there was evidence of a crime, fresh evidence that could be found in the house behind me. And so we don't know what that evidence was yet, and we don't know what the justification was. At some point, if this case moves along, we will see that affidavit and we can judge for ourselves. But right now, we're left with a lot of questions here because, as you well laid out, John Bolton has been an ardent critic of the president. He wrote a book, a memoir of his time as National Security Advisor. And, some top officials in the Trump administration at the time did say that there was classified information in that book. He has always disputed that. There was an investigation. It's been reported. There was a civil action against Mr. Bolton, but there was also a criminal investigation that was dropped at the beginning of the Biden administration. It's unclear whether what we're seeing behind me is the Trump Justice Department picking that back up, or is there new information? These are all questions that need to be answered. But again, it's coming in a climate where a lot of people are very concerned about the other actions by the Trump Justice Department and the Trump FBI.
Well, they're concerned about retribution. Glenn, the vice president a moment ago with Kristen Welker, who just happened to have a pre-scheduled interview with him. Again, better to be lucky than good. I'll take that anytime, certainly. She asked him about the retribution, and he just went off on a tirade, not a tirade, but went off talking about how they're going to do things by the book when the Biden administration did not. Can you contextualize that for us?
Well, I was struck by the first person plural that he repeatedly used to discuss the Justice Department. Now, technically, the President of the United States appoints the Attorney General and the FBI Director. But the sense of the proprietary we are investigating, we are looking into, we will behave in a way that is judicious, legal, and circumspect, just struck me as a very interesting way to phrase that. I, as you have encountered White House officials and senior administration officials discuss matters involving the Justice Department in a very different way, saying that the Justice Department will have to make that determination, et cetera, et cetera. So that one of the things that really struck me was kind of his tone. What we have learned this morning is that the investigation pertains to the possession as well as potentially leaking sensitive national defense information or classified information, which is a subset of that larger pile. And interestingly, we've been steered away from this notion that this material was collected to help him write his book, which is the substance of most of the public accusations on the right against Bolton. Instead, we have told that the material that they are looking for pertains to the last 4 years, which would tuck it under any potential statute of limitations and brings it more into the here and now. The question that raises, of course, in conversations with current and former Justice Department officials, is John Bolton has not had access to really sensitive national defense information. He's been out of government for half a decade. So what exactly are they talking about? From my perspective, what would be extraordinarily useful is what the Garland Justice Department did after the Mar-a-Lago search, which is to quickly release the affidavit used to justify. What evidence did they have that led them to believe that there was something in Bolton's house and office that was of value? I think that is, in terms of the information we do not currently possess, the thing that the Trump Justice Department could do immediately that would clarify some of this.
That first person plural really caught my attention as well, and especially when I compared it to what Donald Trump was saying a little bit earlier. There are two sound bites. One, Donald Trump talking about the Bolton FBI search, and then it will be followed up by a little bit more from the vice president talking about it. Listen to these two answers.
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's a real sort of a lowlife. He's like a very quiet person, except on television. If he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that. Not a smart guy, but he could be a very unpatriotic guy. I mean, we're going to find out. I know nothing about it.
Can you tell me, why is the FBI raiding Ambassador Bolton's home and office, and did the White House get a heads up?
Well, so we're in the very early stages of an ongoing investigation into John Bolton. I will say we're going to let that investigation proceed. What I can tell you is that unlike the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI, our law enforcement agencies are going to be driven by law and not by politics. And so if we think that Ambassador Bolton has committed a crime, of course, eventually prosecutions will come. But as you know, Kristen, this is all part of gathering evidence, trying to understand something that we're worried about. And of course, I'll let the FBI comment on the next stage of the investigation.
Just to underscore what is normal, normally you would not have a president or a vice president commenting, period. But the answer that Donald Trump gave is a little bit more in line, just a little bit more in line with what we might have heard from past officials. He said he knew nothing about it. You can argue about that. And the reason I want to question that is because J.D. Vance, Garrett, seemed to know at least a little bit about the investigation, talks about the very early stages. They're looking into classified information. I mean, those two answers, by the way, were given within, probably a few minutes of each other.
That's right, although I will say J.D. Vance is probably more likely to have been sort of formally briefed on the matter, knowing he was sitting down for an interview with Meet the Press, than was the president, who took this question at first blush when he was out on the street not far behind me visiting a tourist attraction just across the street from the White House. It also speaks to, by the way, the experience level that the president has in dealing with this kind of thing, and the way, Katie, that we know he likes to talk about these issues. I always flash back to the Michael Cohen hearing during the first Trump administration about the idea that Trump doesn't give direct orders when he wants something done, especially if it's something that he knows he wants to distance himself from later. He'll simply say, this is a person I don't like, or, why doesn't something happen about this guy, right? He speaks sort of obliquely about it. So he's at least consistent in that way. But the idea that the president was totally distant from this decision, I think, is one that we should view critically and should continue to report out, especially when you consider that the only reason you have Kash Patel as the current FBI director was that Christopher Wray, the previous Trump-appointed FBI director, was someone who they wanted to push out to get someone in who was a little bit more politically aligned with the president. So the president very much looks at the FBI and DOJ as tools under his purview as president of the United States. And while he's separated himself from this individual decision, the idea that Bolton is a political enemy of his to whom something should happen, I think is a very rich vein for further reporting.
This has been nagging me all morning. John Bolton was the national security advisor. He was ambassador to the UN before that. He's had a long career at the White House over many different administrations. He has been very critical of Donald Trump on the specific subject of classified information and Donald Trump's handling of it. He's been critical of Donald Trump in the taking of classified information and moving it to Mar-a-Lago. Barbara, can you believe that John Bolton himself, given how critical he was, would also be so cavalier with classified information at his own home or office?
The coincidences that are lining up here, Donald Trump's criticism of John Bolton, his vows to get retribution against his enemies, and now finding that John Bolton is, there's probable cause that he committed the very same crime that Donald Trump committed, is getting to the point that it strains credulity. We don't know, of course. It could be that the evidence against John Bolton is rock solid. But because of the statements that the Trump administration has made in the past. Kash Patel having John Bolton in his book about government gangsters on the list of members of the deep state. Trump's claims that he's going to use his Justice Department to go after his rivals and memes with them in orange jumpsuits. All of that undermines any credibility they might have enjoyed. You know, in the past, if probable cause supported a judge to issue a search warrant, I think you'd say, let's wait and see how this plays out. But then you hear J.D. Vance on there talking about so he's clearly in the loop on this. And then comparing this to the prosecutions brought by the Biden Justice Department that he claims were thrown out by courts. As we know, the only reason the cases against Donald Trump were dismissed was because, one, a judge found that the special prosecutor was appointed incorrectly, not on the merits, and two, because the special counsel dismissed the election interference case because Donald Trump was reelected to the White House, not on the merits. And so that sort of misleading rhetoric also raises suspicion for me. Of course, we'll have to wait and see where this goes, but they've really lost the presumption of good faith.